Well, that was an interesting day because it was a day of thunderstorms. And out comes this bloke with a hairnet, a white lab coat, and a really wiry mustache. And I just thought, who is this guy?
Brilliant, extremely passionate.
Unique.
And we went, right, is this guy for bloody real? So where do we go from here?
What a wacky professor. It's the Nutty Professor.
I often think back to life before Ferndale, when Dad used to work at Mars. I would have been 7, 8 years old, and Dad was at a similar stage in his life to what I am at now. He had a young family, a mortgage, but as we know, when Bruce gets an idea in his head, he does pursue it at any cost. So with that, in the early 90s, Bruce handed in his resignation to Mars and disappeared into the family office for 2 years.
I worked with some of the most brilliant people in the world, in both engineering and in marketing. And of course, a lot of that stuck. And but also gave me an absolutely firm footing and passion for some fundamental principles, which I'll never ever sacrifice. Yeah, I had the confidence that I'd learned enough over a long period of time to do our own thing.
Us kids didn't know what he was up to, and I'm not sure Mum did either. But in early 1995, Bruce walked out of that family office and Ferndale was born.
You know, but basically the business consisted of myself, my wife, my eldest son and 2 of his schoolmates in the factory. And so that was the business. I spent 3 days a week out selling products and the other 4 days a week in the factory building packing benches or whatever out of chipboard purchased at Mitre 10.
First time we were greeted with Bruce at the door, came in, shows the single machine that he had here. Nothing else, that's it. And he brings this box out, gives us to say, look, I want you to develop this and you've got to help me. I can distinctly remember being here with Bruce and Vicky, you know, when I rock up here, you know, it was just Bruce and Vicky. When we walked in here and saw what we saw, is this guy just going to be on a roll and thinks it's going to work? Is this guy for bloody real? Bruce made it very clear, very clear. You want to work with me, you got to contribute to the business, you know.
And he took everything I said seriously. He took seriously the technical challenges that I kept talking about with the box, but more importantly, he took on board my absolute crazy paranoia about product quality.
We were amazed at how people would actually take the time to write a long letter to Bruce and say how good the product was. So that sort of said to us in the early days, he was actually going out of his way to make a better product.
We just loved working with him. And even though every time he came out in his white lab coat.
So he said, basically, if you get the job, I want you to go to the market. There's probably over 50 to 80 wholesalers around Australia where I want you to go and see if you can sell on our products and get them to believe in these products that I've given you to take to the market. We got into the petrol convenience stores, we got into the little convenience stores in Sydney, we got the distribution going. Now we had to build a brand.
So it was up to us to create the look. Right at the top on the lid is this little icon. So this icon, we spent a lot of time brainstorming, and here it is large. And we've got 2 mammoths, so they're not elephants. People think they're elephants, extra strong, extra long. No, they're hairy mammoths. They're stronger than elephants. Yeah?
He did give us a script for the new TV ad we were about to write. And he said, I'm not an advertising man, but here's the script.
And we went, right, so where do we go from here?
We binned it and wrote a new script. But that was our first relationship in doing creative. It was a lot better when we created the Wilson ad for Gilla, because I think he he did recognise that when that script was written, we really had a winner.
Come on, Wilson, you win! Get into it, Wilson!
I still remember it. I was there the day that they filmed the commercial. And that's the commercial that put Ferndale on the map. It put Gilla Mints into consumers' hands all across Australia.
Gilla Mints to us as a brand is like iconic, and it's iconic for Australia. Also, the product itself is great. So as a neat little package, it's something that we're very, very proud of.
The most important thing of all was that we had to have products and consumer propositions that were totally differentiated and different to the marketplace. You know, we were competing against huge, very rich companies. We had to have a business that had minimal costs, minimal overheads to generate the funds necessary to invest in the brands and to be able to afford to advertise the brands nationally.
I remember our first overseas trip as a family. Dad took us to Hong Kong and we were walking along the sidewalk in Kowloon Bay, and Dad was the proudest I've ever seen him. We managed to buy a packet of Gilla Mints off a street vendor in the middle of Hong Kong. Ferndale was going global.
All of a sudden, His Majesty comes up with the mini click-shut box. We achieved getting the go-ahead to supply these to Qantas. We got these on every tray on Qantas South Africa, into Europe and the UK. So absolutely loved it, and one of my finer achievements as well.
Most school holidays and just about every night after school, I'd spend my time at Ferndale. It used to drive me insane. Mum would pick me up from the bus depot and I'd go back to Ferndale, and I'd have to wait for Mum or Dad to finish work, because the alternative was a 5k walk from the bus stop home, and that wasn't something I was that interested in. So every night and every school holidays, I was at Ferndale. I was sweeping the floors, I was helping out where I could.
I just thought, what a cool little kid. He's got country charisma, right? Run around like a lunatic.
Ferndale's been in my life since I was 9 years old. It's been the most constant thing in my life over the past 30 years.
When Leigh first walked in, and first time I sort of spoke to him, he walked up and I'm on line 3 at Ferndale, packing away, and he's just standing there, and I was feeling very nervous because he wasn't saying anything, and then all of a sudden he goes, can I have a go at that, please?
Local legend David Hames once said, I grew up with paint running through my veins, and I often joke to family and friends that I actually grew up with a Gilla Mint in my mouth. For me, the Ferndale journey's really just been about pivotal moments that have happened. My first day officially at Ferndale came in 2010, when after 2 years travelling the world, having lots of fun, I was faced with the reality of a real job working for my dad. In typical Bruce style, he gave me a folder. It had 9 sheets of paper in it. It had the business's core principles, it had the business strategy, and a page titled A Hierarchy for Building Successful Brands. I still remember it. I walked in, he gave me the folder, gave me about 20 minutes of history, pointed me to the desk. There was a phone, a computer, and that was it. I was on my own. So I did what I thought was right, and I started filling my diary with meetings with customers. And from that point forward, Ferndale has only grown in my life, and meeting these customers was the best way for me to understand what the game was all about. It's remarkable how true those 9 pages still are. Every senior management team member that starts in this business today gets the same 9 pages, gets the same bits of information from me, because they are the fundamentals that have built Ferndale over the past 30 years. In 2015, our business changed forever. I had a meeting with Aldi and I asked them, if there's something that Ferndale could do that we don't currently do, what would that be? And Aldi's response was build a marshmallow factory. And I thought, wow, a marshmallow factory. We're a sugar-free business, and here we are talking about marshmallows, probably the most sugary treat on the planet. I spoke to Dad, and before we knew it, we'd invested a whole heap of cash, we'd bought the land, we'd built a factory, and we were underway in building what is to become Australia's largest marshmallow production facility.
It was very hard, very difficult. Found myself doing stuff I hadn't done for 30 or 40 years, We don't have an engineering department, we don't have a technical department, we don't have an organisation set up to do that. And so we've had to do those things by being pretty clever, I think.
The days were really long, stressful, and we really didn't know whether we were going to be able to pull through. But then it happened, the phone call from Woolworths. It's a phone call that I'll remember for the rest of my life. Bruce, Nick, Corey and the team were in the factory, quite, I guess, unsure of what the future held for us. We had been working incredibly hard, it had lots of pressure, and walking into the factory at about 5:30 on a Friday night with the news that we had 12 weeks to deliver to 1,100 Woolworths supermarkets. It's the first time I've ever cried on the phone to a customer. It's the most powerful phone call I've ever had in business. It was like a cork had been popped out of my back and I collapsed to the floor. The pressure we were under as a business and as a family to win was immense. And that one phone call from Woolworths set us on the course over the next 10 years. It's a day that I'll never forget. It was a moment that I think is pretty special for Dad and I. I swore that SoSoft would be the last ever factory we would build. The long days, the heartache, the stress was something that I wasn't prepared to put me, my family through again. But hindsight's a wonderful thing, because 3 years in, we got bored and we decided to build Foodline. Bruce and I have traditionally approached things by ourselves, but we did realise that the scale that we were building, we needed help. And so we went out and we found amazing people to help us bring Foodline to life.
At the time that I joined, Foodline was a shell next door to SoSoft, so there was no equipment, nothing. So really bringing Foodline to life from scratch was a big, a huge project. It was the biggest project that I've ever worked on.
When you're giving multi-million-dollar contracts to equipment suppliers because you think they have the best equipment in the world and you think that they know how to do the job based on judgment, yeah, it's you take a few risks, but eventually you get there.
I really can't believe how large it got, and in hindsight, the sheer scale probably outgrew what any of us ever expected. But in true Ferndale style, one project at a time, one day at a time, one late night at a time, we got it done and we got through it. I've often said to Corey, our technical manager, who's been with me since the first day of SoSoft, that I'd hate to go to war against Ferndale because we simply don't give up.
You know, I think it takes a lot of persistence and grit, which I think the business is founded on.
Even though we've done some crazy things, like we've built a factory without having a product and without having a customer, I don't think it's high risk because I'm confident in the market, I'm confident in the principles that we can apply, I'm confident at the end of the day we'll be successful. If you don't have superior quality, you're wasting your time.
That's what set the business up back in 1995, and that's what will continue to take the business forward in 2025, quality and value. In 2023 was one of the proudest moments I've had as CEO of this company.
Ferndale Foods Australia.
The business was named 2023 Commerce Ballarat Business of the Year. For us, it was an incredibly proud moment and a great reward for the effort we've put in over the last 30 years. It was a reward for staff, a reward for family, and it was also great to be recognised by my fellow business community here in Ballarat. We're a Ballarat family, and I think we're now part of Ballarat's fabric. Business of the Year, that was a good day. In the late 90s, Bruce was backed by major retail with Gilla and Joel's. Fast forward to 2018, once again we've been backed by major retail with SoSoft rolling out across Australia. And then to see it all play out again in 2024 with Team Nutrition, which is now going across Australia through a number of different retail outlets, is something unbelievably exciting, and customers are pivotal in our success.
Launching Team Nutrition's been such a positive project for me to be able to be part of the journey from the beginning of the brand, following Bruce's brand building architecture and then bringing that to life in a modern context was really positive. And then when we get into market and we go to activations and we hear firsthand from shoppers how much they love the product, like that's like a product development team's dream.
I'm very, very proud to sit here today with what is a world-class facility based in Ballarat that is ready to scale for the future. So to be CEO of Ferndale Foods Australia is something that does make me incredibly proud. I've been blessed with the opportunity, and I've taken the opportunity and applied my style to it. Customers today still say that it's quite remarkable that over 30 years they've only dealt with the Edward family. Aldi as an example, our biggest customer and one of our most important. For the first 10 years dealt with Bruce, then my older brother Jared, and then for the last 10 years they've dealt with me. 3 Edward family members for the 30 years. That's pretty special. There's no secrets, family business is hard. Over the past 15 years, working very closely with Bruce, there's been some of the most rewarding, but also some of the most challenging times I've ever had. Sometimes it's difficult because most things we ever talk about is work, but upon reflection, I think about it, I took the idea of building a marshmallow factory to Dad, and fundamentally he backed me. He ran with it, and we built So Soft. And then a few years later, I had this idea and this opportunity that I thought was real, and that was to build a factory to produce bars. And once again, Dad backed me. That means a hell of a lot. I think about the late nights, I think about the challenges, I think about the stress building 2 factories, running 3 factories. That is all apparent in all of my team members too, because they've been there with us over that journey. They do it because they love it, they do it because they support Bruce and I, and without team members that can have your vision, have your work ethic, none of this comes to be where we are today. Fundamentally, the people are of what made Ferndale over the past 30 years.
The culture at Ferndale for me is really founded in an authentic drive to show up as we are, and the attitude of the business is to get in and get things done, and we bring people along the way. Like, again, from my first interview, fake wasn't an option.
Over the past 23 years, I must have put out more than thousands of moneymaker stands, got hundreds and hundreds of new customers, built up the business. I thought there's no way I'd be here doing this at this point in time, but here I am, and I'm actually really glad to be here.
You can sit at lunch and pick Bruce's brains about his experience and hear about the legacy of the brands, and we can get direct product feedback from Leigh's girls. Like, I love that aspect of the business.
It's still the same family-orientated company that was there all those years ago when I first started.
It started with a simple idea at the kitchen table. It's been 30 years of growth, challenges, and more than a few laughs. But most of all, it's been meaningful.
Good one, Wilson.
It's easy for me to remember the year Ferndale was founded because I was also born that year, so I guess great things happened in 1995.
You actually couldn't afford good coffee. It was always dingo dust.
Vicky Gum, we produced over 1 million packets of those.
Dingo dust again, 30 years later.
One word? I've got many words.
So imagine if you and I could see all the mobile phones talking to each other. It'd be like a kaleidoscope. There'd be flashes here, there, and everywhere, in all colours. And he is totally from the left side to the right side and in the middle with total different equations on how to do things.
And, it's a challenge as well.
I like the challenges. Well, most of them. Line 5 was a real big challenge. Click lock is a big challenge.
I really have loved having Ferndale as that constant in my life over the last 30 years.
Seeing Ferndale go from a tiny little factory where there was about 6 people on a shift to what it is now, it's a great achievement, and it's been a privilege to see how far that tiny little business has come.